of material. So this morning's already fully lined up, which is awesome. Cool. Mets our first game, and I think we'll a few more seconds at it, but Black in this, and he reading. I think it's an opportunity for us to learn a little bit of that. So yeah, um, uh, this is a pretty interesting game. Um, just want to make sure. I think maybe slowing the stream down so make sure have full. Um, anyways, yeah, I think that's better. Um, this is a game that I'm at. Uh, is, uh, and spatial strength against it was a little bit slow, so I'm just gonna close this out. It's just better to do it. Cool. Uh, avoid basically, against B, there's one basically about challenges to a center. Dennis, how you doing? Your game is first. For easy developments, big advantage. These F4, F4D farms. Basically this provides opportunity for Black to basically expand, and largely it's a result of this quick B3 not being too challenging for White. Yeah, I think this is good. I'm just sort of opening theory here. It's not something that's going to have a lot of preset opening theory. I think that this structure works fine. This pawn's not particularly vulnerable to bishop b2, and yeah, White has played basically similar to like a modern or almost hippopotamus style opening here. Yeah, it's a little bit slow. So I'm gonna that proves that I'm gonna try to maybe disconnect one of my other devices. Um, Actually, I should probably do that now. Hold on 1 second. This lag drives me crazy too. Uh, but I hope that's helpful for the lag. But sorry for the lag, guys. Yeah. So overall, White's basically playing this relatively passive opening. So this B3 E3 structure doesn't really challenge Black in any way. So against this, Black develops normally and secure. Let's look at the analysis here. I bet it's already pretty close to equals. So Black has equalized here with this bishop d6. Hey, morning everybody. It's nice. I'm trying to bring on some new viewers and stuff. So it's great. It's great to see everybody here. Uh, and we have lots of material today, which is really the most helpful thing. So I appreciate everyone sending games in. I appreciate everyone being on the stream. Um, yeah, no, it's a little bit laggy, unfortunately. But hopefully it'll be okay. If not, I can try to. Thank you very much, Topo. No, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate everybody being here, and the material is really nice. And it's just awesome. Um, Cool. Yeah, and please tell me, if there's any problems with the reception. I'll try to make a better, I'll try to make a better setup for my for the reception stream if I can. Sorry for the lag if anyone's experiencing that. Um, but yeah, so overall, this is this is basically developing against and against a relatively passive opening. So yeah, here the bishop trades off. Black now has this bishop pair secured, and pretty good condition for black. This fianchetto is white's real key. Uh, yeah, no, it's great. I appreciate everyone being here, honestly. So yeah, so bishop takes knight, and black's showing more than equality. This sort of demonstrates a little bit how there are advantages to playing more passive openings, but the space advantage provides black with a more comfortable ability to develop. With this space advantage, black can basically position his bishops on the third rank, whereas white wouldn't be able to do that in this situation. So this sort of gives an indication of why in the big picture, openings like e4, e5, d4, d5 provide an advantage that make them the most popular at the highest level. Openings like b3 and the modern are also very playable, but at the end of the day, these types of two pawn forward openings are just more challenging for your opponent. So yeah, so bishop d7, bishop takes, and now black's showing -6 on the eval, minus -0.6 on the eval with better development. It's just a much more comfortable game for black. So I definitely advocate playing these two pawn forward type openings. Knight f6. I guess that they characterized that as a mistake. Let's just play through the computer line here. There must be a tactical refutation of it. Oh, no, you're right. I mean, so knight f6 is not the yeah. So knight f6 is not the move here. This e5 pawn is hanging. Sorry, it was just I'm so used to seeing the knight on c6 as opposed to the bishop on. But yeah, like queen f6 or queen e7, um, that puts a pretty straightforward defense. Um, X may also be playable, uh, but six would pair development. Maybe it's like, but white basically healthy develops against a relatively passive white structure. So that's just something to consider. There is a reason why e4, e5, c4, and centralized pawn openings are the most popular. It's generally because of this ability to challenge your opponent and use space advantage. White space. The fight here is basically over the fourth file as opposed to the fifth file. So this center structure ends up being better for black. Um, Okay, so this pawn, that's just a tactical thing, like seeing that this pawn on e5. Sure, yeah, no, totally, Topo. Would you be cool looking at it 6:05 p.m. Eastern today? I still have some slots open for then. I'm really excited. We have a lot of participation, so this morning's pretty much full. But I can promise you that we'll get to it as the fifth slot at 6:05 p.m. tonight if you're all right with that, or you could do it tomorrow morning, whichever you prefer. Um, but yeah, so knight d7, and basically, this position's probably slightly better in terms of development for black. This bishop can secure this diagonal if it needs to, and basically, the main inequality. Okay, sure. Would tomorrow morning be okay, Topo? Um, I'd like to get to it. But it's also it's also recorded. So whichever time slot you most prefer, we can do. So tomorrow morning is good, or tonight, and just have the recording. But I'd like to get to it for sure. Um, so whichever. But thank you for sending the game. We'll get to it in very soon, either tonight or tomorrow. Um, Queen h3, e4, pawn takes. Um, okay, yeah, cool. So we'll do it. We can do it tonight. And then uh, yeah, sure. If you send another game, banana, definitely we can get to it 6:05 p.m. tonight, and then we'll be full for tonight, and then we can start filling out tomorrow. But this is great. I love it. This is so awesome to have participation and enough games to review. This is great. It's exactly what I was looking for. So yeah, so both of you guys, if you send it now, we can look at both Topo's and Banana Reno's games tonight, and then Topo can watch on the recording tomorrow. Um, yeah, cool. All right, added for tonight, Banana. Yeah, of course. No, and honestly, it's always recorded. So if it's easier for you to watch at a later point in time, if this schedule doesn't work well for you, it's recorded and saved for 14 days, and I would make it be saved for longer. I just I'm not sure how to do that on Twitch yet. But it's the recording is always watchable, and we'll go over the game, either way. So yeah, thank you all very much for sending it in. So slots are now filled for the rest of today, and I can start working on tomorrow. This is great. It's awesome to have so much material. Um, yeah, so let's get back to this game. Black's attacking on the king side here. So I'm just gonna play it back a little bit. Development here is healthier for Black. Black has this spatial advantage and the fifth rank controlled, whereas White only really has the fourth rank controlled. Black has a healthier center and a better opportunity for development. Knight f6 hangs the e5 pawn, so a defensive move would be an improvement there, like probably queen e7 or f6. Um, but anyways, going forward from that, now Black still has somewhat healthier development, and space advantage. Center control is a little bit less clear now because there's value of the bishop on this long dark square diagonal. But Queen g5 makes sense. Black's basically going to try to attempt an attack here. I think this basically makes sense. I mean, this bishop has the potential to become powerful on this diagonal. So that's something to consider. Starting an attack here makes sense to me. Queen f3, knight f6 is probably a little bit vulnerable to getting taken by the bishop. You'd have to decide whether, this bishop on c6 really looks like a pretty good piece for Black, and it's not particularly attackable. Like, it would take a bunch of moves for like the knight to get involved in blocking that bishop. So it's actually a surprisingly good outpost for this bishop here on c6. Knight f6, rook e1, knight to g4. And overall, basically this attack is playing out pretty well for Black. This knight here, there was vulnerability for it for a second here. So like this line, I think is probably gonna be pretty good for White. But in any case, the strength of this bishop on this diagonal is something. But I don't think Black can continue to maintain with these material losses. So this ended up being pretty good for Black. You capitalized on the material gain. Yeah, no, thank you for being here, Topo. We'll look at your game at 6:05 and you can watch the recording. Thank you very much for contributing. Appreciate it. So knight to e3, and then overall, the knight was able to capitalize and get this rook takes knight, queen takes knight, and now Black has the material edge. So I think the error here was something positional to think about. I think this is sort of instructive. F3 is not a good move here. F3 weakens this king side. The correct move here, I think, was queen g2 for White. Queen g2 holds all the squares that Black might be attacking, and also puts pressure on this Black queen on h3 to move. So f3 basically opens up additional lines of attack on this king for white. Basically this bishop line, which the queen is able to exploit later. Um, so that I think is pretty uh, that I think is pretty good. Knight d7, queen g5, and now basically at this point, white's still showing the material edge. But you can sort of see how the white's position deteriorates a little bit as more attacking lines, get opened up for black in an attacking position. So here, I guess I would say, you know, white is going to need to free his position at some point. Like, it's basically sort of a problem that that white played such a passive opening. Um, basically this pawn structure is very unchallenging to black. It basically offers black an opportunity to be the more aggressive player. So a move like e4 here is sort of necessary in the sense that it frees more attacking lines for white, but it ends up adding to black's attack in a pretty significant way. This d file is going to be controlled by the black rook, and black's rooks will have much better mobility than white. Yeah, so white light squared weaknesses I think are pretty big and exploited by this bishop on c6. Um, so ultimately, uh, this push ends up adding a lot to black's mobility. This rook on d8 gets this line becomes surprisingly strong. So for that reason, on the e4, the eval shifts by about a point and a half, and black's pieces end up being better from this. Um, this bishop is powerful for black, for sure. Um, this this tact, I think this is a sort of a tactical thing to revisit. Bishop takes, knight f6 here does allow this bishop takes move, and queen takes, and then black's down a little bit more material. There might be a response here with like rook e6, and then potentially rook to h6. Um, but I think as in a general principle, there's a need to keep an eye on just these sort of lost pawns. As the level gets higher and higher, your opponents will make it more and more difficult to recover from material losses, even if it's just a pawn or two. So I guess I would just say, overall, tactics training is my big uh, my big piece of advice for this game. But I think because I think there's two pawns that potentially get lost here for black. That this one on e5, um, and then later this one on f6. Um, to bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes. And otherwise, I think I think black has really successfully generated an attack against a relatively passive white position here. But holding it all together with some tactical errors is uh, basically tactical errors hanging material uh, are something that we all make at some point, but need to try to be minimized. Um, so overall, very good game. You really were able to exploit this king side. Even down a pawn, you were able to basically generate an attack that caused white to be under pressure and to ultimately make a positional mistake like f3. Um, but yeah, this was great, and you saw queen h6, queen b6, which was a great way to exploit white's kind of precarious king position. Um, just in case, just since I think there's a few more, new people here today than most days, I think there's a lot of value in tactical training, especially below the level of like 1600, or definitely below 2000, and even more below 1600. Most games below 1600 are determined by tactical opportunities. So I spend a lot of time advertising, chess.com or chess tempo or CT-ART is a program. But the biggest priority for people under, basically at class level is tactics training. The percentage of games that are determined by tactical plays is extremely high at that level. So for anyone wanting to show the quickest return on time spent studying, I'd lean heavily towards tactical play. Chess.com has their puzzle battle and their puzzle rush uh, modules. Chess Tempo has a free tactical resource. I think Lee Chess has a tactical trainer as well. But the time just really needs to be put in on that. You'll see if you do a lot of tactics training that that material losses will go down, and you'll be able to exploit material losses by your opponents at that level. Um, no, I mean I think it's all the same point. Whatever you can do with a free membership is what I would advocate. But rated puzzles are fine too. Uh, Puzzle Rush and Puzzle Battle will I guess I would say Puzzle Rush and Puzzle Battle. Quicker time control puzzles are probably the best. You want your vision to be almost perfect against superficial threats like just there's so many times when there's like a one or two move tactical combination that just gets missed, and we all miss them at certain points in time, but you want to get the times that those happen to be as small as possible. So yeah, I would just say as many puzzles as possible. With Puzzle Battle you can probably get uh, several hundred puzzles in per hour. And if you do that for an hour a day for a month, you'll have much better vision. So yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I would say for the quickest improvement, quick puzzle battle is the most important. Yeah, no. I mean, but the thing is, Mikey, you really can improve on that metric. If you do, if you do 200 puzzles a day for a month, I guarantee you'll be better at the end of that month than where you started, and the percentage of things that you'll miss will go down significantly. Like it's just sort of objectively true, and every master has put in an enormous amount of time to getting their tactical strength up to a sufficiently high level. There's so many. Yeah, I think that's the right. I think that's the right course of action, Mikey. Any tactics trainer is fine. I wouldn't say that chess.com is necessarily too different than other ones. But just many puzzles and a lot of repetition will help you win many games at class level. And it's not necessarily even something that a coach can help you with so much. It's more just you literally just need to put in the time and do as much tactics training as possible. Um, Coaches are very helpful in terms of learning. Uh, Coaches are very helpful in terms of learning, strategy and positions and openings. But at the end of the day, at class level, most of the, opportunities are tactical, and that's just vision that you need to establish for yourself. It's just basically, I use the comparison of weightlifting, but it's basically something that you just need to do as a habit. And every master has done it to a pretty extreme degree. Anyways, that's where I would advocate you spend time. And the aspects of this game are excellent. Uh, uh, but the place to look, to move forward is really in tactical study. So yeah, thank you very much for sending this game in. This is an excellent instructive opportunity of how to exploit a space advantage against B3 and generate an aggressive attack, which you did very successfully in this game. So yeah, great game, Amet. Thank you for sending it in. Yeah, this is a good demonstration of why E4 D4 are the most popular openings. This is this is Discord and Reddit and yeah, I'm pretty much going for as much material as possible. But if you send me a game on really any route of communication, I'll get to it. You can even send game links on the stream, and I'll get to them. At this point, we'd be getting to them tomorrow. But we'll look at them 100% for sure. I'll just add them to my list. And also, all the lessons are recorded too. So if there's anything that if there's a particular lesson that you can't make, but your game's on the list, you can just watch it the next day. I'm I think it makes a lot of sense given that people's schedules are different from each other. Um, I'm just pulling up the next game now. This game was sent by Nihais from Reddit. He sent this game and he's playing black. Thank you very much for sending the game, Matt, and great game as always. Please keep sending them, and they're great. They give us an opportunity to take a look at things. So Black was playing, or the viewer was playing Black here. White plays the Scotch. Scotch with an early exchange on knight c6. And I'm just gonna play through this really quickly just so I get a sense of the game. This looks like a pretty good a tactical win by white. So let's look at this. Bishop c5, knight takes c6. Bishop b4, and then I guess I would say, probably on bishop on c3 I'd play queen takes d1. But we can look at this. We can look at this opening line. Here, white comes up with a pretty good tactical threat. This attacks both the pawn on f7 and the bishop on a5. So there, this is a pretty tactically oriented game. Let's think of places where there's opportunity for improvement. I think here, basically, queen takes d1 is a good simplifying move. You have this opportunity to disrupt the king's ability to castle. And here, with queen takes d1, king takes d1, this, basically, this is a good trade for black. White's ability to castle has gotten disrupted. And I think that's sort of what you're going for on bishop to b4. Yeah, so it is. It's a very tactical position. So I think tactical study, and a heavy orientation towards tactical study is a great place to be, focusing on as Nihai's here. So we can go over the game too. Thank you very much for you guys, Flank and Lemon. Thank you both very much for the follows. And thanks to everyone who followed outside of streaming hours. I really appreciate your following and for having you here on the stream. So this is this is a heavy tactics oriented position. Here, white offers an opportunity to trade off relatively early, and I think basically as black, equalizing in this way is a good idea. So I would play queen takes d1 here. As opposed to bishop b4. I think both moves, are trying to disrupt white's ability to castle here. But queen takes d1 successfully, basically is a more successful way to do this. So queen takes d1, king takes d1, and black's showing a pretty favorable eval of -1. So I think that's pretty good. I think that's a place to look in the future. But this is a heavily tactic-oriented game. So I would say step one in terms of improvement is improving your tactics weightlifting. Just really get really make sure that you're comfortable and you're not missing too many one-move tactics. I think this opening provides some good instructional value in terms of looking at this early Scotch game. So I think let's take a look. Cool. Yeah, thank you very much for sending the game, Bishop. And Stella, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate it. So we'll look at Bishop's game tomorrow morning. If that I hope that works. And if not, it's always on the recording, so that's good too. So here d4 is the normal Scotch game. Pawn takes d4, knight takes d4. And this is the normal Scotch. Knight f6 can be played, and bishop c5 can be played as the two primary moves. There's other alternatives here like queen f6 I've seen in a few games, but I think bishop c5 or knight f6. I play bishop c5, so we'll go from there. What I see the most frequently here is bishop to e3. There's three moves here, and they're all basically, they all pose their own challenges to white. Bishop to e3 is a normal developing move that defends d4. Uh, Knight takes c6 is also a line, which is what's played in this game. But normally, what I see in the Scotch game is bishop to e3. Black then plays queen to f6, white plays c3, black plays knight to e7, and then white plays c4. This is the most common. This is the most common variation, I think, at club and non basically club and higher. I think this is what I see the most frequently is the Scotch game. So just something to look at. Um, Basically, white has somewhat better development, but both sides develop pretty quickly. Um, you know, and it's a relatively aggressive open game with a lot of healthy development for both sides. But this is what I see the most frequently uh, basically white's manner of playing uh, the the Scotch game. Bishop c5, knight takes c6 is another line in the Scotch, but not one I see as frequently. Here, the move is a pretty interesting one. I've seen a few different responses, but the opening theory trainer is pointing heavily towards queen f6, which is what I would do. Queen f6 works because it's threatening mate on f2, and it's threatening to retake this knight. So the knight is not savable on c6. Queen f6 attacking f2 is really the play. Here, basically the options are queen d2 or queen f3. But either way, black is going to regain this knight on c6. So d takes c6 is a distant third option. So the improvement that I can offer white is take a look at queen f6 in the Scotch game here. This is the correct book move in this position. It's not so intuitive just because you're not retaking the piece that just got taken. But this Scotch game allows for this early mating threat by black. White will play queen d2 or queen f3. On queen f3, I guess I would say that it's probably retaking the knight on c6. The knight can be retaken in either way, or queen takes f3, and then probably b takes c6. B takes c6 becomes more valuable just because it offers more lines for this bishop to advance here. But overall, that's I'm gonna offer the broad suggestion that you spend some time on tactics. I think that you'll see good returns if you follow a routine tactical study plan on either chess.com or any other tactics trainer. But also this move in the Scotch is sort of one that you would learn by experience. So I think looking at queen f6 as the response to this knight takes c6 move in the Scotch is somewhere where I would focus your time. This threat on f2 gains a tempo that will allow you to retake this knight. And when you retake the knight, black will be in a pretty healthy open position. Queen d2 and the eval's equal or maybe even slightly better for black here. So against this early no. So I think the intermezzo line is good for black here. I think this this early trade on c6 offers an opportunity for offers an opportunity for black to get developed quickly. Knight takes c6 is not the main line. The main line here is bishop e3. Is what I see the most frequently. Thank you very much for the follow, Stella and RV. appreciate it. Thank you for being on the stream. So yeah, so next game, uh, uh, Queen F6 is the move. I'm gonna make the suggestion. Opening lines are often a matter of taste, but in this particular case, if 90% of the games are getting played as Queen F6, I think that's your improving move here. Otherwise, I think the rest of this is pretty much determined on on tactical play. So yeah, thank you very much for sending this, Nihais. Thank you very much for the game, and please keep sending them. Very interesting and a good opportunity to take a look at the Scotch. Cool. Next game. I'll just pull it up. This one was also sent to us from Reddit, and this is a game from Dubious. Or sorry, this is a game sent to us from Feudiport. He was playing black in this game, and I'll just upload it to here. Yeah, totally. No, not offended at all, Feudy. Thank you very much for sending these games. We're gonna go over both of them now. But feel free to watch on the replay. The replay gets uploaded to Twitch immediately after this class ends. Yeah, no, I gave you 2 slots for this morning. We're gonna do the game review. And feel free to watch it. Feel free to watch it on recording. But yeah, so your games are coming right up. Feel free to watch live, and watching live is probably a little better because you can explain your thinking and ideas live. But it works just it works well on recording too. So if that's a better route for you, we'll look at your game either way. Thank you very much for sending them. So you play the modern. The modern is interesting. I guess I would say it offers white a space advantage. For sure. And it's kind of interesting to see how to play it basically. I've tried playing the modern and the perk, but have never really gotten an ability to get it to work on my own games. In the games that I've played, white ends up getting a large space advantage, and then black is good in the sense that he's played something that doesn't have a lot of theory, but it offers basically white some pretty big concessions pretty early. Just something to think about in playing this opening. That said, many grandmasters play it, so it's a very playable opening. I've just never gotten it to work. When I've played it. Black gets quick development in a cramped position. White has a big space advantage on black's 5th rank, and a bigger center. Black is playing hoping for an overextension. Black has this C5 push. And the engine is actually yeah, no, totally. No, I think it's a good it definitely is an idea with well established opening principles. But just stylistically, giving white such a large space advantage is can be problematic. So it's just something to think about. But openings are style based. It's something to you should definitely play something that you're happy playing and that you're comfortable with and that's fun for you to play. If it's fun for you to play the modern, then play the modern. I would never, that's the most important concept. But thematically, one of the issues with the modern is a cramped position for black, and some issues with his so basically spatial issues for black, and central control issues. But white frequently makes moves that undermine the position, so there's still a lot of win. I can pick them up from the server, Anch. Thank you very much for asking. We're good till tomorrow morning at least. So I'll pick them up off of the server later today, or after this stream probably, and then we'll have them for tomorrow and the day after. It's wonderful that people are participating. I think it's great. Yeah, yeah, no, and I get it. Feudy, like I think the uh basically, playing an opening that takes your opponent out of theory that they know has a lot of value too. um, One of the things that was really appealing to me when I was trying to play the modern empiric is that it wasn't a well established opening theory. So, just in terms of my personal style, I figure that I'm, generally pretty good tactically, and but sometimes run into to issues, against very well prepared opening, basically opponents who have very good opening preparation. So when I was playing against masters or whatever, I was running into issues playing, against basically D4, where basically they could get, they had very well established opening theory. So I was trying the modern against that to try to sidestep a lot of that. But the issues with space and central control were enough to outweigh that kind of surprise non-book idea. Um, so that's the history of me trying modern and Pyrrhic. Uh, so yeah, basically what the computer's advocating here is actually not takes immediately. It's advocating pawn takes d4 and having both of these threats available. This bishop may play like, I guess the what do you call it, like the desperado, like bishop takes b7 just to get the extra compensation. But I guess this Sicilian takes, which trades your c5 pawn for this d4 pawn, is evaluated as valuable. And since you can do it with tempo, the computer's evaluating it as objectively better. Um, but either is fine. Bishop takes c6 makes sense too. You can probably get a bishop to b7 fianchetto that will have some attacking value. The d6, the bishop takes e6 line leads to this, which offers a white opportunity to trade queens. Um, Black can also ignore this threat and allow threats. Basically, it's relatively tactically complicated, but pawn takes d6, pawn takes d6, and Black will end up with with an isolated queen's pawn, but a lot of open threats along this fork here. Uh, Threats on b2 and threats on g1 along this now open diagonal. But yeah, this kind of keeps moving forward, and the rook seizes this open file. Um, I'm just thinking in terms of where basically white has somewhat of an edge here. But on bishop b takes bishop b takes a6, white's basically offering, or the engine's basically offering d takes c6 or d takes c5, which ends up with an isolated pawn on the c file, as the obvious first choice. D takes c5, d takes c5, and then e5, knight d7. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, when once black allows pawn takes d4, um, that shows a better position for black. Um, Black plays a strong developing move in seizing this open file. King h1, it makes sense. There is some yeah. So C and B lines are your strengths here. Yeah, no, I totally agree. This is a great opportunity for you to improve your rook. This rook is basically never, the A file is not the rook, the file for the rook in this situation. This is unlikely to get cleared. So seizing this open file and good mobility for your rook is a real strength here. Bishop g7 is strong here, and I think potentially queen to b6. with attacks on the G1 king are things to look forward to. White basically sees there's a an issue for the king along this long diagonal. Um, so here, um, Queen b6 is still a strong move, but doesn't have the same amount of power as if it was still attacking the king on g1. Um, Ideas here are like you know I guess there's potential pawn breaks for black. Um, but yeah, overall an interesting situation. Um, I guess I would say this yeah, e4 is a little bit loose. D5 is probably a push that black's going to want to make at some point. Similar to many games out of the modern empiric, the basically white has a spatial advantage. White's controlling black's fifth rank, and you know, basically black is trying to equalize on the fourth rank. So depending on how familiar you are with the perk, that's fine. But it does offer white a bit, center control and space. Um, but e4, yeah, e4 does look like it provides some vulnerability. Queen c7, rook b1, bishop b7, bishop e3, and here, yeah, I think white's got pretty healthy pieces. Black has healthy pieces. Black has so black has issues with this pawn structure. This pawn structure is not good for black. Double isolated rook pawns. These are going to be attacked and provide a material weakness for black. It's almost impossible to hold both of them, and even if you do, it's a tough decision because this pawn structure, first is difficult to hold. So allocating, it's a tough decision as to whether you want to allocate moves to defending it or not. Just since it's so likely to get lost. Um, yeah, the a7 pawn is a big problem after bishop e3. I'm not really even sure if it's worth defending it, to be honest. Um, this pawn structure is weak, so I think developing an attack here as opposed to spending time defending a weak pawn might be something to consider. But it's very situationally dependent. Um, but that's a concept that should be in your mind thinking about it. I think yeah, if you have a game you want me to look at, King Me, please send it. The next available slots are tomorrow morning, which is great. It's great to have so much material to work off of. So yeah, so if you send a game now, King Me, I promise we'll look at it tomorrow morning. Make that part of the lesson. Um, yeah, so rook f c8, bishop f3, rook e1, rook b4, and overall black has good position, strong open file, and yeah, things are looking good. This is a good way of efficiently generating threats on e4. Actually, this is worth looking at because I think you've got a great threat going on that centralized pawn. And you have the ability to establish force on it pretty quickly. Cool. So rook b4, and then queen b8, and queen b8 threatens b2 and e4, which is great. Hey, welcome, Tarash. Thanks for joining the stream. So yeah, so pawn threats on e4 and b2. A3. I guess you'd have to look through and make sure that your queen wouldn't get stuck on this material pickup. It's a great trade for you actually if you are able to trade this a7 pawn for this b2 pawn. But yeah, makes sense. Bishop b4. Yeah, no. I think looking at the tactical complexities here are very important. So that's definitely something to think about. Cool. Yeah, no, I'll take a look at later, Tarash. I'll look at the recap. I'm sure there are some excellent candidates games I'm a little bit behind on. Um, so yeah, rook h5, h3, and yeah, this is this is looking I guess I would say pretty equals. Knight takes e3. Yeah, no, it is interesting. This pawn structure is a problem for black. You know, it might have been worth it to establish this pawn structure because this pawn structure was formed after bishop takes a6. But it does offer a place for white to attack, and then once these pawns are cleared, black is going to be vulnerable to potential attacks on the queen side here. F5, pawn takes. And here I think white's in pretty good. Hey, thank you very much for the follow, Opie. Appreciate it. Um, yeah. But here I think basically you know, uh, this bishop sack is interesting. Um, it's certainly a very aggressive way to play this. I guess I would say uh, this is not till tomorrow morning, Tarash. But if you send one, we'll look at it. Uh, yeah, no, it's great. It's great to have so many games. We'll get to them all eventually. Um, yeah, knight g5. Interesting. Yeah, that does disrupt that attack. Um, you'd have to think of a lot about whether this bishop takes f4. I mean, it's a lot of material to be losing here. I guess materially at the end of the day, uh, um, at the end of the day, basically, you are getting three pawns against this bishop loss. But it's a little difficult to assess the value of the pawns just because these a7 a6 pawns are difficult. Um, uh, Knight f2. Yeah. Yeah. This is. I mean, it's a tactically complicated position. Um, Bishop takes, pawn takes, rook takes, and then knight g5. But isn't I would take a look at rook g4 here. Well, I don't know, maybe not. Um, I was thinking rook g4 and trading both of the rooks for the queen, but that might not be the way to do it. Queen there. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I guess, I would say I understand the logic behind bishop takes f4, but it's a lot of material to be giving up, in this position. Considering that you're already, basically you're winning materially here, right? White has an initiative in a complicated position. Yeah, good question. Um, you know, that is a really good question, Feudy. So let's think about this. The engine is suggesting rook h5 and king h8, both evaluated as equal. I think of those two, rook h5 is better. This rook is very extended, and that is sort of dangerous. But I don't know, maybe rook h5, rook a5. Um, but this is a very complicated tactical attack. It's difficult to do it justice with a quick view. Um, I think basically this h3 rook is probably something that needs to get fixed. Especially with knight g5 and knight f2 so playable, probably rook h5 and reallocate it to a different part of the board. Um, it does feel unnatural to start playing defensive moves against an attack, though. Uh, there is the alternative queen g4. Oh no, queen g4 falls to knight f2, so not queen g4. Um, uh, okay, so knight f2 and knight g4 do make that rook, the threat on the rook, more immediate. I think you may. I think unfortunately you may have to withdraw it. Rook h5 and then rook a5 are probably the way to do it. Uh, yeah, I think those types of conservative moves are the way to go. Uh, Black's up material here, and a fight for equality here is probably just the best option. On move like g4, it's not as if White can start attacking on the king side here. You would be concerned about an attack on the king side, but g4 rook h5 you know allows for threats on the f4 pawn later. Um, White's the thing about a pawn storm on the king side here by White is that it's double edged, and it basically will allow White's king side to get more open as well. So I think at the end of the day, retrieving your rook from this somewhat awkward placement may be necessary to keep Black's game moving forward. So yeah, so I guess here I would advocate for Rook h5. Um, just taking some computer suggestions. B4, I don't know, A5, I guess. Um, but Rook F5 might be the correct positional replacement. This Rook on F5, permanently fixes G3. Um, it might be time to move things towards the queen side. Maybe. And just leave the king side alone, because advancements for White will lead to vulnerabilities. So just working for relative, you're moving out of the attack phase of a game and more of sort of a consolidation phase. So here I would just start trading pawns, particularly these rook pawns, which are your weakest pawns, and see if you can trade them for some of White's pawn structure. That would be one attack. That would be one movement forward. But I think I agree with the concept that this rook needs to be retreated. It will be stronger and less vulnerable to attack after a retreat. So I think that's the movement forward. Um, Bishop takes f4 is just too compromising. It basically turns you into a point where it's basically a must win. Um, uh, Yeah, so rook h5, f5. Uh, well, so f5 here, I think is basically, I don't think f5 is an immediate threat. So like, queen g2 and then rook d1 and then rook f5. Uh, Pawn f5 by black. I just want to make sure, because um I don't think the pawn can, or because black doesn't have an f pawn, right? Um, yeah, I think rook h5 is the move. Oh sure, yeah. Let's take a look. Uh, f5. I mean, f5 does open up black's position a bit. Um, I'm not sure. I don't. I don't really dislike f5. I think you know, at this point, black is still sort of attacking on the king side and finding, basically checking to see if there's the ability of attacks on the king side. Here I might play. This is a move that I might change. To be honest, I think I might play rook f8 here. I think rook f8 might be a better play than pawn takes e4. Pawn takes e4 allows for white to move him really, so um, I think pawn takes e4 allows for by white and improved mobility by white. So I think just leaving that where it is and playing rook f8 might be a better alternative. There are some threats that you might have to worry about later relating to the mobility of your rook on h5, but I think that's an improvement. So just going through this game in summary, uh, I think bishop takes f4 is probably is an idea, but is probably too ambitious. But there are other moves here which I think are improvements. So the two moves I would look at here are 24 fx e4. I think improving your rook here to f8 probably is maybe a good route forward, as opposed to just letting white move his pieces forward. Um, and then I would revisit bishop takes f4 concepts. Materially speaking, you're equal or better, depending on how you assess these isolated rook pawns. Um, so rook to f4. So bishop takes f4 is not necessary, and sort of puts you in a position where you're going to have to try to force an early win, which is going to be difficult. So that opportunity I think is I think those are the two places I'd look at. Move 24 and move uh, 28. But yeah, very interesting game. Interesting stuff, and I think yeah, it showed some interesting play out of the modern Pirc. Bishop takes a6 is an interesting alternative. I'm just gonna check the opening lines here. Um, and just so we know for the future, this also offers you an opening book improvement. 21 games have been played here, and of those 21 games, 20 of them were c takes d4. So c takes d4 is the main line, just in case you want to revisit your opening book. C5 main line, bishop takes a6 is somewhat an unusual move, but the opening book response to bishop takes a6 is c takes d4. Interesting game, though. Thank you very much for sending it. And let's take a look at the next one. It's another game. This is a game as played by. This is your over the board game, Feudy. Um, so this is a mainline French. Here I guess I would say I like yeah, so you're playing white. Um e takes d5 is playable, bishop d3 is playable. This is a winnower. Yeah, winnower is the name of this opening. Um e5 is the main line, knight e7, and then the most common move here is a3 over knight f3. But both are fine. A3 yeah, but knight f3 is also a move that can be played. A3, pawn takes, bishop b5, and yeah, advancements by white. I like white's position here. These bishops look pretty healthy. Um, one thing that's thematic about the French is that generally in the French, black gets a stronger queen side, and white has attacking opportunities on the king side, somewhat similar to the Sicilian. Um, Here, white's showing a good eval. This bishop a3 is strong there. Um, I don't know. Main line here would be castles as opposed to bishop a3, but I think they're both playable. Bishop a3, queen d3, bishop takes, pawn takes, and white still has a big mobility advantage. This position's relatively open, so the knights are not incredibly powerful here. Knight f5, knight c4 do offer white some good outposts, but in this open position, the bishop holds up well against the knight, even though it's a French. Queen takes, bishop b4, a5, pawn takes a6, and yeah, this is I guess I would say this is pretty good for white. This does lose the pawn on a6, but I don't think that's a huge problem. Overall, just yeah, pretty smooth sailing. I'm wondering if white can do anything to disrupt black's uh, pawns here. Um, or even if I guess I don't know. There's some interesting opening play with this structure. Um, so yeah, so C3 does become kind of a liability, an attacking target. Uh, I assume the B6 pawn is going to fall. It's very difficult to defend this B6. So, you know, it's isolated. So um, here, right? I guess you can't play rook takes b4. So I guess the really good place to slow down here is probably around here. So you guys know, my profession, I've worked in finance and I've worked in tech. And currently I'm working as an application developer. So Cop Review is uh, an app that I developed that uh, I don't know. It's an app that I developed is the answer. Banana. So knight d5 and overall this position this position is relatively close to equality. Um, yeah, but I think it offers you a good opportunity to clip now. Um, Rook ha8, knight d6, and knight c6. And now with rook takes, rook c1, looks pretty close to equal. But I don't know. I guess I sort of want to revisit a little bit. I want to slow down a little bit here. Uh, H5 is probably the best move. Yeah, no, thank you, Banana. Yeah, if you want to take a look, the links are available, and it's what I do professionally. So, um, I really enjoy chess, but is developing applications. Um, so yeah, so Rook A3 is a move here that sort of advances and allows these rooks to get over. These problems quickly. I think be right that C3 is over priority vulnerability. I think here, uh, yeah, no, thank you, Banana. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, feel free, anyone that wants to take a look. Um, uh, Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's exactly the right assessment. I think this C3 pawn is not as bad as it was assessed to be. I think if you play like King to D3, that deals with a lot of the defense here. Rook to B1, I think is probably your best idea. Um, the C3 pawn does look like vulnerable there, but I think that White loses some time here by by basically trading this off in a situation where it's more or less okay. I think dealing with the threat on C3, in a as a reaction is probably a better way to do it. I think not worrying about this C3 pawn at this moment might play out better. Because the weaknesses the weaknesses of this C3 pawn end up just becoming weaknesses of the D4 pawn later, right? Um, so you know, basically the idea that it's vulnerable to an open file and backwards are just going to happen against this D4 pawn at a later point. So yeah, I think as a takeaway, I would allocate less worry to this C3 pawn, and instead try to worry about his rook to B6 pawn. If he's forced to use moves to defend against B6, he's not going to be able to mount an attack against C3. So that that will play out. That basically will play out well for you. So that's an improvement, I think. Otherwise, this makes sense. I mean, the knight's outposted on d6 and takes the pawn on f7. Um, Black's able to exert some pressure on d4, which is good. Um, and overall, yeah, that b6 becomes difficult. This is a complicated endgame that I can't uh, quite do justice to in a few minutes, but um, yeah, interesting. It ends up yeah okay. I mean, here I guess I would say it looks like White has some pretty good chances at this endgame, but I guess it's a difficult one to convert. Um, just slowing down a little bit here. Um, Rook d1 looks pretty dangerous. You have to count it out to make sure that b2 doesn't become a win for black. But rook d2 threatens the immediate rook takes d6, e8 queening. So that looks pretty dangerous. Um, yeah, so I move here actually is not rook e1, it's rook d1. Um, just the tactics of this seem to work out a little bit better. So like here, rook e6, and then f7, and white should have sufficient pawns to get through this. Yeah, no. I mean, it happens to everyone. It's just that's the more precise tactical play. These things are very hard to see in time pressure. Yeah, no, totally, future. I understand completely. It's just hard to see. It's often hard to see. Tactical play in in time pressure. So, I don't have a better piece of advice again for that than I don't have any better advice for that than uh, just do more tactical study. That's my solution. Um, so yeah. Anyways, a few different takeaways here. I guess I would say the important pieces were basically. I think you can spend less time, and I just want to make sure that I didn't have any earlier things, but um, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think White had some pretty good chances in that end game. It's it basically played out reasonably well. Um, so this is my first suggestion. I think this c3 pawn should really be defended when it starts getting attacked. Its backwardness and its vulnerability on this open file may be a problem, but they won't become a problem till later. So just in terms of how you allocate time, it's better to get this quick attack on this b6 pawn than it is important to defend the c3 pawn. So I think walking away from this game, you know, you a good attack on b6 might serve as a defensive play on c3. This rook might play rook c8 immediately. So like in a sideline, rook b1, rook c8, king to d3. Um, Black, rook c8 he can play pretty well and get a good attack on that c3. But basically, putting more force and like one more piece on this c3 pawn for white or for black is going to require a lot of effort. Like it's going to require rook a7, rook c7, and by then you might be able to come up with a better defensive move. So I would, yeah. So that's what I would say. I would say get the attack on b6. You know, and don't worry as much about this backward pawn. This backward pawn is defended tactically, so threats on b6 will serve a defensive purpose in forcing your opponent to respond to them and spend moves responding to them. Yeah, no. I think that's one takeaway. And then here, I mean, you've played a very good game. These are relatively small things to look at. I'm just thinking here, um, this really isn't even too much of a thing to take away, but um, uh, this tactical this tactical structure is better for white. Rook d1 here is the move. It looks like king f8 is also playable, but rook d1 is the tactic that I see. White's basically got a win here. You've done a great job. These pawns are extremely strong. Um, it the one of these pawns should be able to queen for you, I think. Um, uh, I Interesting. Yeah, no. I mean, tactical study is where it's where it's at. People have put together great instructional guides on like exactly which tactics to study. And I think they're all good. I think basically just putting time in is the way to do it and the way to move forward. So an hour a day of tactics for a month, I guarantee you'll be better. Like I, it's your marginal, you're a fairly high level. I mean, you're an A level player, so your marginal returns on tactics might not be as high as someone who's a little earlier in their improvement, but we all have to do it, and that's a way forward that will promise great returns to anyone at class level. Um, but yeah, so rook d1 was the move. It was a time pressure error, very easy to understand, and I think with more time you would see that. Rook d1 or king f8, you with enough time, I guarantee you'd be able to queen one of those three pawns. But you played a very good game and very interesting, and yeah, those are the two takeaways. That c3 is not as vulnerable to attack as it might first appear, and then this tactical play, which is really just a time pressure tactics training thing. But overall, good game and interesting. Yeah, very very interesting. Cool transposition out of the French winner. Cool. Thank you very much for sending that game. Please keep sending them, and thank you for participating. Glad we were able to get to both of those. All right, and these two are from Discord. Um, yeah, no, there's a lot of progress to be made on production values here. Yeah. The right tactical position for you, and where you might see some good returns future are uh, puzzle battle. Puzzle battle on chess is an excellent way to improve your tactical sight. In a Cool. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you for the follow, Mannard. Appreciate it, and thank you for being here. Um, but yeah. So if you are having issues with puzzle battle, my response to that I think is gonna be to advise puzzle battle on chess.com. I think that those are really good ways to get your tactical sight sped up. You may it may be difficult. It's a difficult program. Chess.com's puzzle battle, but time pressure, I think it will really help with in the long run. I think you'll get much faster. Competing, um, doing these very quick, relatively superficial tactics. I think that'll really speed you up. Yeah, no, thank you for the subscribe. Or sorry for the follow, and thank you for being here and participating. Um, yeah, so here Banana Rena's game. Banana Reno played as black, and we'll take a look. Two more games left for today, and then we'll have a full schedule for tonight. But if you guys want to keep sending games, I'll just add them to the list, and we'll fill out the next few days. It's awesome. It feels so much better to have plenty of material, to be honest. Cool. So this is Sicilian. Very early bishop c4. We can talk a little bit about this. So bishop c4 is a move that is not necessarily so good in the Sicilian. I've played it, and it's playable sometimes out of the Grand Prix attack and out of the closed Sicilian with knight c3. But bishop c4 here, is basically running into some pretty serious difficulties. This diagonal is not necessarily so good, largely because e6 stops any strong attack by this bishop on this diagonal. I know you're playing black in this game. It's more just to think about in this opening. C6 or E6 is a great response, and now I think potentially you might be able to expand your center pretty well with D5. In fact, I'm almost wondering if D5 is the right move here. Sicilian with C5 and D5 is, you know, if it can be supported, is pretty strong. Oh, thank you very much, Mikey. Thank you for the subscribe, Mikey. I really appreciate it. Yeah, no, thank you. No, it's real. All the participation is excellent, and thank you all very much for all of that. Bishop c4, knight c6, knight c3, knight f6. So this is the mainline response. D4, pawn takes, knight takes, and then this is the first move that deviates. And I actually think that it's a pretty interesting move. D5 here really makes a lot of sense. D5 as a response to the bishop c4 Sicilian is really a play that I think is intuitive and good. You know, you have to be careful to make sure that it's sufficiently defended, but D5 makes a lot of sense. It's not even in the opening book, but I think it's a very playable move. The opening book move here is D6, by the way, but D5 I think offers black some good chances, so I like that idea. You know, you have to be careful to make sure that the D5 pawn is always sufficiently defended, but it definitely you know, seizes the center for black. Black has this isolated queen pawn structure, which is more common in you know, queen's pawn games than in the Sicilian. But it's going to play out pretty well, and you're going to have good mobility for your pieces. Black's piece mobility is actually excellent here relative to most you know, most Sicilian positions. Here knight c2 is interesting. Interesting. So they're actually saying that knight c6 is the best move, but I like knight takes c2. I guess what they're evaluating here, the strength of knight c6, is basically building up your central pawn structure here with on bishop takes c6 is a you know, is more valuable in terms of compensation to black than knight takes c2. Knight takes c2, you know, offers white offers black the most direct material advantage. So I guess you know, I'm gonna say knight takes c2 is a good way to play. I very easily could play knight takes c2. Yeah, so we can look at those lines. So knight takes c6, bishop c6 is advocated as the main line. Either way, the bishop's going to have to move somewhere, right? Because the bishop's getting threatened. So it can either go. The two moves that look okay for the bishop here are knight takes or bishop takes c6 or bishop f5. But on bishop f5, e4 gets to be played, and that forks these pieces, and black gets a serious advantage. So yeah, so I guess, but I'm gonna say knight takes c2 is a completely reasonable and rational play. It wins this material immediately, and yeah, and knight takes c2 is makes a lot of sense. So I you know, in your position, I would probably play knight takes c2. But knight takes c6 or knight c6 is the one that the engine prefers. So knight c6, bishop f5, d4, and now the pawns are forked. So, or the pieces are forked by the pawn. So pretty good. Anyways, knight takes c2 makes a lot of sense. I probably would have played it. Queen takes c2, queen takes d7, and it looks equal and pretty healthy for both sides. Black's liability, I think, here is the isolation of this pawn. You know, there's great tutorials on how to defend an isolated queen pawn. That's the isolated queen pawn is a structure that at the grandmaster level they're super familiar with, and it has some good general guidelines on how to best play it. Um, but that said, it's an open position. I think black's equalized. And equalization for black is a fine outcome at a high level. So I think things are going pretty well. Um, Knight e4 does create some problems. Knight e4 and then bishop takes g7 is actually a tactic. This is a tactical thing. Um, uh, you know, and I don't know how much I can. I don't know how much it helps to spend too much time on tactical ideas as opposed to strategy or positional stuff. But bishop takes g7 here is a sacrifice for white. On bishop takes g7, king can play g7, and then queen can take d4, and this pawn is pinned, and the rook would take on d7. Um, so that's a tactical thing. This position's a little bit dangerous, and I think that tactic kind of demonstrates that. This rook threat on the d file, it could potentially be dangerous if there's trades on e4. So just something to think about. Yeah, no. I mean, these tactics are, you know, it's there's a lot of chess's tactics, especially at class level. Like, these tactics come up all the time. And I have no more efficient idea than to just do tons of puzzles and strengthen your tactical sight like that. But tactical execution is a huge part of chess, for everybody, but particularly below expert master level. So they just so that tactic was there. Nothing to worry about. I think just do your tactical study, and fewer things like fewer opportunities like that will occur. Here you're looking, after that tactic, you're smooth sailing. Your opponent missed it too. Just so uh, you know, everyone's. I mean, it's a tough tactic to see. Um, but one that you might see if you have great tactical vision, which you can improve and work towards. Um, Here, queen g3, f6, rook fe1, and yeah, I mean it's basically equality. I think you might have another tactical shot here, so let's take a look at that really quick. Bishop d6, queen g4, queen takes g4, pawn takes g4, and black is in a pretty strong position with a better placed rook, and maybe an ability to threaten the c3 pawn. Black's up a pawn here too, so if the pawn structure can equalize, um, basically black's up a pawn. So now's the time to start like trading and simplifying, which you do successfully. And the more traded and simplified it gets, the more your one pawn advantage is going to be good. And also now you've made this isolated queen pawn symmetrical. So now you're really just up a pawn. Black's in great shape. These two pawns against this pawn is the inequality in the position. So you're moving quickly towards a win if you can get this material off the board. Queen d6, and yeah, I like it. I think this is all good. H4 H4 does allow some threats. The computer likes the tactical rook h1 here. Rook h1 is given a brilliancy, so another kind of tactical brilliancy. So I'm not sure exactly what to make of it, but it's hard to see. It's hard to see tactical brilliancies. That's why they're brilliancies. But uh, that leads to a pretty quick mate. I guess probably the best response here is g4, but you're winning material either way, and probably mating either way with queen e1. Um, this looks great for black. So anyways, that's a brilliancy that I probably wouldn't have seen. Tough to see. Cool tactic though. Um, anyways, that's an alternative. Oh wait, did you actually see that? That wow, great play. Yeah, damn. Oh, you nailed the brilliancy. I'm not sure I would have seen that. Great job. Yeah, I'm not sure I would have seen that. That's a very tough move to see. So yeah, cool. Well earned brilliancy there. Awesome. Very cool. Um, yeah. So here basically, equality, a number of tactical things, and you had the tactical sight that you needed when it mattered the most, right? So, good execution. But yeah, tactical sight. This is an excellent demonstration. There exists on chess.com puzzle battle puzzles exactly like this one. I'm sure. They're not easy puzzles. Like this would be like a relatively tough puzzle, which makes it a brilliancy if it gets executed. But this really does demonstrate why tactical vision is going to be a big differentiator at class level. These types of opportunities do happen, and you got one, and it was a quick win for you. So it's great. Exactly what you want to have happen. Your opponent gave you a tactical opportunity, and you capitalized and got the double X clam. So good work. Um, Excellent game. Takeaways from this game: Bishop c4 in the Sicilian, allows opportunities with d5. Just something to think about. You got one here, and it was good. Uh, and here was another thing which was sort of interesting, which was this knight takes. The computer actually evals the knight takes immediate pawn win is second choice to knight c6, which potentially strengthens your pawn center. Um, basically knight c6 forces bishop takes c6, because we saw that the only other move for white here was d4. So knight c6 is a cool tactic too, forcing a bishop trade and then the strengthening of your center. So that was interesting, and yeah, just this bishop takes g7 pawn being available. But at the end of the day, I think basically all three of those were tactical, conclusions. From a strategic perspective, I think what you did made a lot of sense. He played the strategically weak bishop c4. You got d5 in against it, and then ultimately, this game was decided by tactics, which you won that battle, which was great. Um, so three interesting things to look at there. But in terms of overall improvement of play, I don't have that much for you. I think this game was a pretty strong game. Um, uh, yeah, positionally speaking, you got the d5 against the bishop c4 weakness, and then you were able to capitalize tactically, including with this double X clam at the end. The biggest improvements here were tactical, but with tactical improvements, I think it's just more tactic study, and you'll get more of them. Otherwise, strong game. Yeah, no, thank you very much for sending it in, Banana. Really, yeah, appreciate it and appreciate the material. Uh, yeah, thanks a lot for that. And then our final game for today is from Too Much Anch, and thank you very much for all your help coordinating the server announcement, and for helping walk me through some of the issues on Discord, which I'm very new to. So let's take a look. Uh, just pulling it up now. And but yeah, thank you very much for sticking around and helping with all this. No, and really, I'm super happy to do this analysis. It's fun for me, and I learn a lot. No, I really appreciate you guys being here and watching the stream. And hey, thank you very much thank you very much for waiting around. I'm super happy to get to it, and let's take a look. I'm sure there's some good analysis here. Um, so here we go. D4, D5, G3, and uh, this game is played as black. Knight C6, Knight F3, Bishop F5, A3, E6, and black's already in good shape. White has basically played flank moves in a queen's pawn opening. This G3, Knight F3, and A3 structure is basically is good. Something to consider, and there are definitely openings with Knight C6 played against the Queen's Pawn game, but a frequent theme in the Queen's Pawn game is C5. C5 is a move that opens the king, the basically the position up for black and offers center control. Same thing with Knight C3. So Knight C3 again, eliminates the ability to play C4 until a much later point. So overall, basically, this Knight C3, Knight C6 move is a stylistic thing, but it does come with that one weakness that you can't play the corresponding C4 C5 break. Um, G3, and then Knight C6, Knight F3, Bishop F5. This is great. You're doing normal development, and White's not really challenging you much in the center. So I think overall this is great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the subscribe gifts, Mikey. I really no, I really appreciate it. And I one of these things. You know, I don't have a donate button because I'm not doing this for the money. I think this isn't my job. This is just something I do because I love this. I think it's a good thing to give. I really like the idea of free chess. I think it could be and I think really help people learn the game and but I really do appreciate the subscribes too as well, Mikey. It's really nice of you to give everyone the opportunity to subscribe, and it's really nice of you to be here and to very much for helping encourage others to watch. It means to me, Mikey. Thank you very much for that. So yeah, no, I really appreciate being here and participating and helping out. Thanks, and please send some games. I'd love to take a look at an analysis. Um, so yeah, Bishop G2 is good, and by this point, basically with the relatively no, it really is appreciated, Mikey. Thank you. So at this point with basically this relatively passive play by white, black doing normal developing moves has established really healthy piece play for himself uh, and basically seized quality according to the computer's eval. So Bishop G2, Knight F6, Knight H4, Bishop E5, and I think basically this is this really is slightly better for black. You know this this bishop, which can frequently be a liability in queen's pawn openings, has an opportunity to trade potentially for white's good bishop, which would be the best, but even for this knight. And then black has better development and equal to slightly better center control. So overall, black's looking good here. H6, bishop takes f6, and yeah, all of this I think is pretty strong. Basically bishop to d6. Black's development is good. Black's played in a very intuitive way, and I think everyone's in good shape. Castle's queenside, knight d2, g5, and yeah, I mean, black's trying to capitalize on his superior development. Castles and I can just say castles here is going to lead to castles here is probably the move to revisit the most in this game. With castles, basically, black is going to have the opportunity to attack aggressively with his pawns and bishop on the king side. This is really strong. This is really going to be a powerful attack. H5, E4, h4. This is exactly how I would have done it. Get this quick attack on the white king side, and white's not going to be able to recover from it. Um, I'm wondering if there's a way to tactically win the queen here. Knight takes d4 is pretty interesting. Pawn takes d4, queen takes d4. This gets you back at least a lot of material. On rook f2, rook takes d5, and this is overwhelming. But yeah, overall at the end of the day, like crushing, great, awesome win. No, I mean it's an awesome win for black. And uh, let's go back to see if there were a few moves that could have been more efficient. But exactly the right way to play. Basically, getting this quick, healthy development against white's passive opening. I guess I would characterize this passive opening by white as being the kind of defining feature of this game. Black plays in the intuitive way: just get your pieces developed, get them developed to the right squares, and quickly launch an attack. Um, there's probably some tactical improvements here. I think something like h5, e4, h4. So there's some slight efficiencies here. Uh, you know, so I guess the biggest improvement to this game, is one that is a tactical one. This knight becomes able to be sacrificed. I think maybe we can slow down on this one because there's a positional aspect to it too. Pawn takes d5 and then knight takes d4. And black secures 3 pawns almost immediately for this knight. In a position where that's really the correct play it. Pawn takes d4, takes d4, and now black secured a pretty big lead. Very lead back to pawn, but he gets aggressively. This is an awesome game, extremely high quality here. I would it pretty much exactly the same, but it's efficiency that can be given here. G2, and yeah, win. Quick, good attack. Yeah, I thinking. I mean, the one additional constructive point. When plays opening like the thing F3 G3, you capitalize on that. White's deviating from his normal structure of the normal opening policy of develop your pieces before moving your pawns too much. White's playing a lot of pawn moves, and if black responds by playing a lot of piece moves, have a superior developing position. Basically, white has strength in his pawn structure, but that's worth the same as developing your pieces. For h4, queen 1, and here, got a pretty crushing attack. Rook takes d4 here. Rook takes here, I guess, was another improvement. I understand a lot of keeping your rook at the 8th file, but this material, is worth it. H4, bishop 7, and yeah, no, a well executed tactical win. Nothing too much to improve on. Yeah, I really think you capitalized. It's a great game. Um, uh, yeah, you did multiple things right. The quick development against the passive opening with too many pawn moves was the correct idea. The quick attack here, was the correct idea and played out well for you. So, aside from these two tactical improvements, which are basically knight takes or knight takes d4 or rook takes d5 here. The only move to look at is move 18 for black. Otherwise, I it's a strong game. I don't have much to add. And your opponent helped a bit by playing so passively. Please keep sending them, Itch. Super happy to look at them. They're very interesting, and this is a particularly good one, which means that I have particularly little to improve on. But overall, very interesting game, and yeah. Thank you very much for sharing it. I really hope to see more, from you in the future, and thank you so much for helping coordinate this stream and for offering a chess study channel, which I'm really hoping this stream has the opportunity to add value to. Really interesting stuff. Great games by everyone. I'm really happy to see all these new faces, and it all it's all great. Thank you all so much for participating and for being here. Our next show is at 6:05 p.m. tonight, and yeah, thanks all for everything, and have a great day. Yeah, thanks. Have a good one, guys. See you later. Bye.